So let's just jump right into a really profound paradox at the heart of the U.S. adoption data architecture. This is a visual companion to a fantastic essay from Thoughtless Delineation called The Database That Counts Your Severance and Keeps None of Your Name. We're going to look at a massive, comprehensive system that counts a person's severance from their first family down to the exact day, and yet, by design, keeps absolutely zero trace of who they originally were.
To really hook you in here, just consider this number for a second, 186. So the federal government uses this database called AFCARS, the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System. It's basically the only comprehensive record the U.S. keeps for every federally funded adoption. And within its out-of-home care data file, it logs exactly 186 data points about a child. I mean, we're talking highly detailed administrative snapshots. It captures the precise day a child is severed from their first parents, the day an adoption was finalized, their sex, race, ethnicity, funding details, you name it.
But here is the wild part. Out of all those 186 meticulously captured data points, the system intentionally retains exactly 0 retrievable records of that child's original name or identity. The birth parents? They just appear as de-identified demographic characteristics. A race category here, a statistical flag over there. Never as actual people you could find. Never as a name that a grown adoptee could one day ask for to understand their own origins. The system counts the severance right down to the day, but keeps absolutely nothing of what was actually severed.
Which brings us to Part 1, Architecture of Silence, and how this systemic erasure happens by design.
Okay, so to really grasp what's happening here, we have to look directly at the federal schema itself, because this isn't a filing error. It's not some glitch in a database. It's a deliberate design. AFCARS records this massive volume of demographic data, removals, placements, exact legal dates. But it structurally engineers out any link to the person's origin. There's literally no field for an original name, no field for a retrievable birth parent identifier. The whole system is structurally incapable of returning an adult adopted person to their origin, simply because it was built without a place to hold that information from the jump.
And honestly, the federal rulebook goes way further than just leaving a name out. The system actively ensures a child cannot be re-identified. Child identifiers are fully encrypted, so you can't link the record back to the person. Actual birthdays, they're recoded and blurred to the 15th of the month, literally erasing the one date a physical body actually remembers. Identifying county codes are suppressed, and small populations are aggregated so that individuals just dissolve into pure statistics.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would a system do this? Well, the agency's own rulemaking explicitly confesses that this is de-identification by design. They stripped this data precisely because it, quote, could otherwise reveal a child's identity. They knew exactly what that record could return to an adult adopted person, and they intentionally engineered it so that it never, ever could.
So, we label this condition the architecture of silence. This is where the absence of your name in the schema isn't just a gap in the data. The absence is the data. It's a series of choices about what is even permitted to exist. They use this really neutral, bureaucratic language and standard statistical privacy practices to make a profound, lifelong severance look like, well, mundane administration. That leads us right into Part 2, the two-lock machine, combining federal erasure with state sealing.
You see, this federal system we just talked about is really only the first half of a coordinated erasure machine. To see how an identity is fully, legally rewritten, we have to look at the state layer, the second lock. So while the federal government handles the demographic counting, the state handles the living files. The moment an adoption is finalized, the original birth certificate is locked away, sealed. In its place, the state issues an amended birth certificate. And this document literally overwrites a person's history. It names the people who raised the child as the people who actually bore them, legally erasing the adoption from the core vital record. The state isn't just withholding the truth here, it is actively replacing it.
And looking across the country today, this state-level reality is incredibly fractured. Right now, in 33 states and the District of Columbia, the absolute default is sealing. That means an adult adoptee can't just go get their own original birth record without jumping through discriminatory hoops, like seeking birth parent consent or begging a judge for a court order. So between this encrypted federal data and the sealed state records, there is not one single office in the entire structure charged with simply preserving your origin and returning it to you.
Moving on to Part 3, the identity gravity well, and the real human cost of this erasure.
So, what does this massive machine actually do to a person's understanding of themselves? Well, it creates what the source essay calls a fifth-dimensional split. This is an enforced gap between the self that actually lived, the physical reality of a person's actual beginnings, and the self the state's paperwork authorized through that amended certificate. And this gap is held open for a lifetime, specifically because the one piece of paper that could close it is locked away in a vault.
And that profound absence creates the identity gravity well. Just imagine the absolute vertigo of knowing you exist in a national database, fully meticulously counted with 186 distinct data points, and yet you remain entirely unknown as a specific person. The state knows the precise day you were handed over. They know the exact category of your race. But the single fact that is uniquely yours, your actual origin, is actively withheld. And no volume of demographic capture has ever filled that missing center. But things are shifting. Let's look at part 4, the post-tragic turn, and how folks are reclaiming the architecture.
Now, if we just stop at the tragedy of it all, we miss the really important reality of what citizens and advocates are actually doing right now. The main takeaway you should grab from this explainer is that this architecture of silence is just a policy default. It is not a law of nature. Sealing records is simply what happens when no one steps up to intervene. But people are intervening. This design was authored by people, which means it can absolutely be unwritten by people.
In fact, we're seeing this post-tragic turn sweeping across the country right now. As of July 2026, 17 states have reactively legislated unrestricted access, finally affirming an adult-adopted person's right to their own original birth certificate just upon request. Virginia is actually the newest addition to this list, officially opening its files just this month. So state by state, this default of erasure is actively being rolled back.
Just look at California, where Senate Bill 3881 is advancing right now. This bill does exactly what we've been talking about. It unseals the original birth certificate for adult adoptees on request. But crucially, it also repeals the provision that allows the amended certificate to omit the true place of birth, meaning it stops the erasure right at the point of issuance. It's slated to become operative in July 2028, and it just recently passed the California Senate with a 35-0 vote. When states do this, they basically stop allowing the federal government's data erasure to be completed at the state level.
But even before any more legislation passes, there's a powerful action available to all of us right now. We must name the architecture. You see, a silence that is clearly understood as a deliberate design completely loses its protective disguise as an inevitable truth. For way too long, the sealed record has been treated like the weather. Just something that happens to us, but it's not the weather.
As this quote so brilliantly points out, this whole system is a choice. It has an author, a date, a rulemaking record, and a signature block. Everything about this federal schema and the state sealing laws is a decision. And because it's a decision, everyday citizens and policymakers hold the absolute power to decide it differently. This lock is not a law of nature.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. They wrote down the exact date, and they deliberately deleted the name. Will you step up and help write those names back? To really grasp this architecture fully and join this crucial conversation, I highly encourage you to go read the full, rigorous essay on the Thoughtless Delineation Substack. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning those defaults and keep learning.